Welcome to Otherworldly Entities. My name is Erebus, and I'll be your host and resident believer. Together as always with my two lovely co-hosts and skeptics, Nyx and Thoth.
I'm the aforementioned Nyx. Voice of reason, or so they say.
And I'm Thoth. I don't really remember how I got here, but I feel compelled to stay.
Together we'll be diving into the unexplained mysteries of our world. Get ready to lose some sleep because I think we've got some juicy tales from Reddit for y'all today.
Yes, here at Otherworldly, we're all about the exploration and investigation of extraterrestrial and cryptid encounters.
So let's dive right into today's Tales from Reddit.
Story 1. Well, here it goes. I guess I would consider myself an abductee. As a child, I had experiences of being abducted. I would lie awake in my bed all night in a state of hypervigilance, trying to observe the bedroom door, closet door, windows, and walls around me all at once, until I exhausted myself to sleep. I have various memories of the little gray aliens entering my room through the walls and grabbing me by the wrist to lead me around places outside of my bedroom. It was nothing resembling a ship or anything, just a plain room. They would run their fingers up each vertebra on my back, and to my child's mind, I could only imagine they were counting them. They would conduct other seemingly medically related exams, and to this day, I'm still terribly afraid of needles. I'm worried the nurse is going to scratch the bone with the needle. The small gray ones were about as tall as preschoolers, about 3 feet tall I suppose. Pretty much your classic gray. Large heads, big insect eyes, slender torso and limbs. They look like they should have difficulty standing or walking upright while carrying that large head. Their fingers are too long. To me, the long fingers and the large eyes are the creepiest things about them. Being with them is like being in the same room as a very creepy doll or mannequin. They have a very disturbing vibe about them. Their skin is gray and seems not to be flesh. It's waxy like construction putty or something. They have no wrinkles or musculature. Their skin doesn't even wrinkle when they move, and you can't see muscles flexing or anything like that. They don't seem to have any personality or will either, just like drones or something. I imagine they probably stand in a closet while not active and working. Regardless, they still seem more organic than machine or robot. I don't think they're wearing a spacesuit or helmet either. They go around all natural. I also have memories of a big gray alien, perhaps 6 feet tall, who I would be brought to after the little guys were done with me. She definitely had a personality and a sense of presence about her. Her skin seemed to have more features. She wasn't just putty like the little guys. I don't know how I thought she was female, just a kind of intuition I guess. She would look into my eyes with her large eyes, and she could see all of my thoughts. I could sense her in my head. She would say things to me, clearly as an attempt to get me to believe them, or buy into them. I could recognize them as not being my thoughts, but she didn't seem to care. Trying to push against her will is like pushing a dead car uphill. Having her in my mind was very disempowering, and I would almost liken it to being violated. It's not cool or fun at all. Someone else is in your innermost sanctum, your own mind and thoughts, and you didn't invite them. You don't want them there, and they're just doing whatever they want. At various times, she told me, telepathically, "Don't make too much trash, or people will get sick." And, "Stop cutting down so many trees." She also told me, "We're very grateful for your help, you're a big help to us in our project." And, "Don't tell other people about us because they can't see us, and they will only get upset." She tried to make me feel positive about being there, but I wasn't having any of it. I only wanted them to take me back home. I had no idea where I was. It's like when you're a kid and a teacher tries to encourage you for doing something you don't want to do, like sweeping the floor or picking up after yourself. "You did a great job sweeping. You're such a big help." You don't give a damn about helping the teacher. You just want to go and play or whatever. Well, I didn't care what the big one was saying. I just wanted to go home. They've never told me any secrets of the universe, and I've never had any hybrid alien or non-gray experiences. For what it's worth, I've had sleep paralysis experiences, and to me, these are different, just like a dream is different from a nightmare, and a nightmare is different from sleep paralysis. In sleep paralysis, I've experienced a distinct sensation of a hostile or angry presence, one that restrains me or physically accosts me. During these moments of terror, I find myself trapped in a state of immobility, panicking. After a few harrowing moments, I manage to jerk myself awake, and the fear dissipates rapidly, much like the fading echoes of a nightmare. However, these alien abduction experiences stand starkly apart. There's no immediate realization that they've occurred. Instead, I awaken feeling drained with multiple days passing before I regain my vigor. Sometimes, fragmented images of aliens or scenes reminiscent of alien abduction invade my thoughts. On occasion, I wake in the early hours with an unsettling sensation that they just left. The aftermath leaves me restless, unable to sleep for hours, hyper-aware and fearful of every door and window. Despite being a grown man, these episodes render me sleepless for hours. As a child, discovering a book on alien abductions in the library felt like unlocking a door to a hidden truth. I remember my mom taking us to McDonald's afterwards, where I devoured the book, unable to tear myself away. For the next 3 days, I was in shock. It felt like confirmation of their reality, and a grim reminder that I was never truly safe from them. Throughout my teenage years, I consumed every book and show on alien abductions I could find. Despite the terror they instilled in me, I was compelled to keep reading. My opinions on depictions of gray aliens are strong. Some seem strikingly accurate, while others feel like stylized interpretations by those who've never encountered them. The more realistic or human they look, the less authentic they seem to me. True alien eyes are completely insectoid, wrapping around the sides, not forward-facing or oval like a human's. I find the eyes of a wasp or a mantis to be the closest comparison. In my 20s, I began seeing a therapist for depression. During intense sessions, I recalled specific memories of the aliens. It wasn't a case of blocked memories. I had simply never dared to recall them due to the sheer terror involved. I believe it's a form of PTSD. It disrupts sleep and mood significantly. Following that session, I was so shaken that my therapist hesitated to let me drive, guiding me through breathing exercises to calm down. I understand how most people would be skeptical, attributing the alien abduction phenomenon to sleep paralysis, an overactive imagination, or as a cover memory for something else. But having lived these experiences, I find it impossible to dismiss them. Even if scientific experiments provide evidence linking certain types of sleep paralysis to the alien abduction phenomenon, I'd still believe in the validity of abduction stories, as the experiences feel too real to be mere dreams or hallucinations. I don't subscribe to the idea that aliens are organic beings from another planet. The physics of faster-than-light travel doesn't support this. My only theories are that they might be interdimensional beings or exist independently within human consciousness. While I acknowledge these theories sound far-fetched, to me, these creatures are more than mere figments of the imagination. Logically, I understand this could be a mental disturbance or a nightmare. However, for those who suffer from this, the pain and confusion are real. A term has been coined for this: post-abduction syndrome. It's not a recognition of the reality of abductions, but an attempt to help those who suffer from the aftermath. Unfortunately, this condition is often not taken seriously, which I understand. Nonetheless, I wish there were more openness and less ridicule for those willing to share their experiences. This is the most I've ever told anyone about it. I'm not interested in going to any groups or anything. My suspicion is that they are convinced there's a government cover-up. I'm not interested in conspiracy theories. This was a good one to start with because it brings up some common issues regarding the validity of abduction stories. Most outsiders are going to attribute these to intense nightmares, imagination, drugs, or a cover memory for a traumatic event.
Yeah, especially with kids. I imagine as we go forward, a lot of the child encounters are going to make people wonder if they've been spending too much time with the creepy uncle or something.
That's something that I used to assume too. But logically, you'd have to assume any alien on Earth isn't stupid. They would know how to pick a good mark. If I were an alien, I'd definitely be trying to abduct the most easily written off victims.
Exactly. People are always asking why aliens show up or present themselves in situations that make documentation difficult. They're never going to barge into a Walmart in the afternoon and rip someone out of the self-checkout. It'll always be drunk, young, or in the middle of nowhere.
Well, even as a sober-minded adult, it's not like my first instinct is going to be to get my camera going. It's easy to read these stories and say get it on camera or it didn't happen, but the victims are scared, confused, and packed full of adrenaline. They don't give a crap about capturing the moment.
The author of that post also brought up post-abduction syndrome. Whether or not you believe that these people have actually encountered an alien, it's important to understand that the victim feels like the memories are real.
If nothing else, the PTSD from this stuff is real, I guess.
It doesn't help that this stuff only happens like once to these people. Imagine what you would do if you saw your cat playing the guitar, but only the one time.
They think themselves down the rabbit hole, huh?
That's what originally got me interested in this topic. The list of people making money off of their experience is minuscule compared to the amount of lives that have been ruined by it. But people keep coming forward regardless. The psychological distress from these experiences are real and they're dying to talk about it, even at the expense of their social standing.
Story 2. It was night. I was woken up. I don't remember that part. I was standing in front of barely open doors. They were partially made of glass, so I could see through them. I was staring at them, knowing what was going to happen. He was going to visit me. I couldn't consciously tell you who he was, but I just felt his presence. He floated or had this strange way of walking fluidly. It seemed like he just levitated towards me. First, I saw his big white head, which had a strangely flat profile. He approached me, his face no more than 30 centimeters from mine. He was a typical alien gray, but he was not short. I'm 185 centimeters tall, and he was slightly taller than me. He approached me so closely that I couldn't really see anything else besides his big, black almond eyes. He stared at me, or through me. With each passing second, I felt like I was getting closer and closer to him. As soon as he approached my face, he started doing something. I don't believe in ghosts, but what he did I can only compare to eating my soul. I felt like he took the deepest part of my being. He started showing me things, displaying feelings to me. It was so intense I couldn't really process it consciously. There were dozens of different sensations, pictures of the ending Earth. He showed me why I was insignificant. I remember hearing hundreds of souls screaming as they couldn't handle the experience. He showed me what he did to them. I wanted to turn my head away from him, but I couldn't. His head attracted my sight like a strong magnet. I could see vibrations coming from around his head. When he wasn't projecting feelings onto me, he was saying something to me, or maybe communicating thoughts. It will sound strange, but he did not talk to me in a language, yet I could hear his voice. It was the most powerful thing I've ever heard, and it was inside my head. His thoughts were extremely well articulated. I tried to fight this entry into my head, but I've never felt so overwhelmed. I can compare it to dueling a modern computer in arithmetic using only an abacus. Now, I don't believe he was evil. What he has shown me was that we, as humanity, are not worth that much. He showed me my struggles, what I care for, and then made me realize it's really insignificant. He projected to me that we are part of a bigger scheme but are truly redundant. They have a need for us, but it's just a part of their plan, and they know many other worlds. The next thing I remember, I woke up in the morning. I've told everyone about it. I got bad looks, but I know it was real. It was no dream. That being was real, and he's the most powerful being I've ever met or heard about. I haven't even seen such a powerful creature in any movie. He projected omnipotence and a deep sense of knowing. What I also remember is that there were other beings like him, but they weren't really separate. They were either different avatars of him, or they formed a collective consciousness with one purpose in mind. What I don't understand is why he would visit me and do those things. What purpose would that serve? Maybe it was a dream, maybe paralysis, but it was a powerful experience for me. I don't remember more. It was almost 5 years ago, and I've forgotten most of this experience. What I remember is that if it was a dream, I honestly felt violated after I woke up, unlike ordinary nightmares, which never made me feel like that, even if I dreamed of being sawed in half.
Story 3. Edray, West Virginia. One night a few years back, me and John were taking his girlfriend home. After dropping her off, we decided to take the long way home. I began to zone out as we were driving along deserted back roads. I was staring at a blinking red light off in the distance, and casually thought to myself, I wonder when they built a cell phone tower way the heck out here. Suddenly, the light blinked and appeared dramatically closer than just a moment earlier. At this point, my friend noticed it too and stopped the car in the road. The light blinked again and was now directly above us. The red light was so bright, it flooded the car in a deep scarlet hue. I leaned forward to see directly into the light, and in that brief moment, I felt a flood of negative emotions. The closest description I can offer is that it felt like being naked under a giant microscope, with every pore being examined thoroughly. I looked from the light to my friend and shouted, "Drive!" He barely responded, apparently in a similar state of shock. He snapped out of it, and we started driving again. As we got a little further down the road, I noticed the red light wasn't fading and the interior of the car was still clearly lit by it. I looked out the window and, to my horror, saw the light was following us. It did so for approximately 1 to 2 miles. Unexpectedly, the light veered off to the left and descended to ground level in a patch of trees adjacent to the road. My friend stopped the car again and continued to stare at it, looking like he was in some sort of trance. He opened the door, and I grabbed his arm, telling him that if he got out, I would take the driver's seat and leave him behind. We had to leave that instant. He looked at me, seemed to come to his senses, and punched the gas so hard the tires lost traction and spun. The light remained stationary as we drove away, but since that night, I've never looked at the night sky the same.
This one sounds like the start of a horror movie.
Yeah, tales like that last one hit me the hardest because I like to be secluded out in the woods. You'd be lucky if it was aliens though. These days, I'm more worried about junkies.
Oh my god, for real though. I listen to way too many true crime stories to ever feel safe way out in the middle of nowhere.
Humans, striving to be the real monster ever since Frankenstein.
Story 4. 2 years ago, I was walking my old dog, bless his soul. It was a clear August night in northern Massachusetts. Where I live along the Atlantic, we don't get much light pollution, and on a good night like this one, it's possible to see the faintest stars with just your eyes. I took a break from walking for a minute to light up a cigarette. By some lucky chance, I happened to look into the sky just at the right time to see 2 very tiny faint objects. They seemed very distant but appeared to be within the Earth's upper atmosphere. Typically, I see satellites and space junk all the time. What distinguishes something as a satellite or space junk is its linear motion across the sky. However, these 2 objects were not moving in any kind of linear fashion. They were weaving, moving away from each other then closer again. They stopped and hovered at one point, and then began moving again.
Story 5. I was driving back home to Los Angeles with a friend of mine after visiting family near Phoenix, Arizona. We were headed west on Highway 58, just out of Boron, California, en route to Mojave to catch the 14. It was night, and we were jamming out to some music. The next thing I know, I'm waking up, looking around, and realizing that I was pulled over on the side of the road, with approximately 3 hours having passed. My buddy was fast asleep, so I woke him up, and we both kind of had a psychological meltdown. After we calmed down a little, we continued home and never really spoke of it since. I have absolutely no idea when or how we transitioned from listening to loud music and driving down the road to waking up safely on the side of the road.
I used to do some long hauls. I'm not surprised they fell asleep. You'd be shocked how common that is. A surprising amount of people on the wrong side of the highway in the middle of the night, too.
I always liked driving at night with there being no traffic and all. Just gotta be careful when the bar's close up for the night.
Story 6. Abduction encounter. I really hope this doesn't get buried because I've never told anyone about this. I remember going outside my house because I could see an amazing light show through the window. It looked like red, white, and blue LED lights, like the ones you get at Chuck E. Cheese, but extremely bright and lighting up my entire house. As I went outside, I saw a huge saucer-shaped craft spinning incredibly fast, yet somehow I was the only one outside that night witnessing this incredible sight. I had somehow lost all my senses except my vision because I couldn't hear, feel, or smell anything in those moments. Even though it was a freezing winter night and living on a dirt road, I was used to the smell of dust in the air. Anyway, it was spinning so fast that it seemed to be liquefying but remained perfectly intact in a saucer-like shape. Then I saw a white flash of light and was somehow transported to my high school Ramada. I was living in Mexico at the time and would go to school in Arizona, so you can imagine that I didn't just sleepwalk there. I was laid out on one of the many dozen tables that were located there, underneath a huge metal roof. I couldn't move and was bare-chested, having difficulty breathing. I still couldn't smell, hear, or feel anything. Next to the tables is the soccer and football field, and there, in the middle of the field, I could see the craft had stopped spinning and was grounded, not making any movement or emitting any lights anymore. Immediately after that, I was surrounded by, I kid you not, what everyone recognizes as gray aliens. They were so tall and horrifying. I tried to scream, but nothing would come out. I was paralyzed with fear, but could sense my screams inside my chest. I have never been so frightened in my life. All I recall was them surrounding me and just staring into my eyes, those diagonal black slits we're so used to seeing. They all had different colored uniforms made out of some crazy reflective material I've never seen before. That's all I remember about that night. I then closed my eyes and found myself standing in the exact place where I first witnessed the red, white, and blue lights. I began to cry and just went to sleep and never told a soul about that night. After reading some posts on here, I too feel a lump on my left earlobe, right where people usually get a piercing. I feel like digging it out and seeing if it could be a little metal BB.
It's gotta be especially rough for the kids in these situations. People are already prone to writing off what kids say.
Well, that and they still have a developing social reputation. It's more difficult to label someone as crazy when they have a 2-decade-long history of being no nonsense.
I'm getting so old and jaded, I hope people do think I'm crazy. If they talk to me less, good riddance.
Ha, remember kids, you're just going to get old and spiteful anyways, so just get the story out. Story 7. I was about 8 years old when I had the worst nightmare of my life. I was lying in my bed when a dark figure climbed through my bedroom window. I was a master at pretending to be asleep. The perks couldn't be overlooked, missing CCD, mass, and getting carried in from long car rides to be tucked in, so I did the same as I was carried through my window. It felt so surreal. At this point, I realized it was a dream. With my eyes still closed, I only had the sensation of ascension. I felt myself stop and open my eyes to a dark room with reddish lights. I can't properly describe it, as it was long ago, in a dreamy state, and plus, it was just otherworldly. I felt just a soft pinch on the back of my left hand and the front of my right. The next thing I knew, I was back in my bed with the uncontrollable urge to cry. I ran downstairs to my babysitter and just cried in her arms. She did the classic "it was just a dream." And obviously, I believed it. It wasn't until the next morning that I noticed the scarring on the back of my left hand, as well as the noticeable metal about the size of a small ball bearing under the skin of my right palm. Over the next few years, the metal often caused my skin to bubble up around it, caused warts, set off metal detectors, and confounded every doctor I went to. It was noticeably more irritable in places like church, airports, and next to circuit breakers. I never got it removed, because I was scared of being anesthetized, and I kind of like feeling different having it there. 5 years after the incident, the metal fell out on its own, and now my skin is just slightly grayed there. I believe it was aliens with all my being. I also still have the scar on my left hand, though it has shrunk considerably.
Story 8. I was first abducted in 1987 when I was 12 years old. I say abducted, but it's not like that. Actually, you go willingly. It's scary but exciting too, and they somehow make you feel okay about things. It's not until later that you feel bad or like you've been violated. And they don't do a lot of probing, like in the movies. That's Hollywood nonsense. They do look inside people, but they use machines for it. Not really machines, but it's like a room where things get done, and the walls are. It's hard to explain. So just imagine that all the walls are kind of like X-ray machines. That's the easiest way to describe it. Sometimes there are others there, and they would be examined or put under and cut open, but not usually. They took tissue samples from all of us, I think, and they never put you under or give you any anesthetic. They just poke you with something like the devices used to take samples of the ocean floor, but really small. They pull out chunks of you, usually from the butt or the lower back. Mostly, they talked with me. Just questions, and they'd show me things, like television shows, and ask questions about them. I think the walls measure our reactions to things too, as well as taking X-rays. I'm not certain, but that's the feeling I got. They never let you ask questions about what they're doing. Even after I got friendly with a few of them, they just don't like it when you ask questions. They hate it. You can't understand their language. It just sounds like humming. I'm positive that we'll never be able to communicate with them in their language. I should mention that these are the grays you hear about, except they aren't gray. They're sort of beige, and it's clothes anyway. They aren't naked. I've only ever met these, so I don't know if there are others. You can't understand them, but they understand you. They can put thoughts into your head, but they can't hear your thoughts. You have to speak to them. They cannot hear very well, or else they don't understand English well, so you have to speak loudly and slowly. I'm pretty sure they would understand other languages. They are interested in all of us, in everything that goes on. They like a lot of things about our culture, too. They love some of our music. Bluegrass is their favorite, as far as I've seen. They love that African instrument that looks like a gourd with 13 strings. But they cannot stand horns or horn music, so they hate classical music and jazz. I think trumpets sort of sound like their language. That's just a feeling I get, but I've never been able to ask them. They've taken me up about every 2 years since 1987, roughly. Sometimes it's more often, and I didn't go up at all between 1995 and 2000. They usually keep me for what feels like a day, but it turns out to be about 4 hours. The longest I stayed with them was 3 weeks. During that time, they had me make phone calls and keep up appearances. They aren't really bad, well, I was going to say people. But they're not really bad beings. Or whatever. The two that I got sort of close with told me to call them Jack and Gina. I don't know if they are male or female, or even if they have different sexes. But I know that those aren't their real names. Those are just names they told me. They will make contact with Earth on a wide scale in 2021. That's the year when they'll land here or colonize or whatever. I'm not exactly sure what their plan is. They don't seem to be evil or dangerous. Their planet is, so they told me, a very long way away. They said it was too far for me to understand and also close to the side. I have no idea what that means, but it's always stuck with me. Home is too far away for you to understand, but also close to the side. We don't have anything they want, as far as they've told me. So I don't really know why they come here, why they've taken so many of us up, or why they befriended me. They have no religion and don't need oxygen, water, or trees. They don't eat people. I don't think they want to breed with us or genetically engineer us. I don't know what they want. But they've been coming here for, I guess, at least 10,000 or 20,000 years. I'm not very good with history and the Upper Paleolithic and all that. But they've got videos of all sorts of stuff. They showed me videos of Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, who were just like us humans except they all had black skin, with much less diversity, and all sorts of other human-like beings, us, or whatever. And they showed me videos of the pyramids being built, and this huge stone building that I guess is lost somewhere or was destroyed, but it was in Europe, I could tell from the video. They have videos of them talking with all sorts of people throughout the history of Earth. They showed me some of them and asked me questions about them, but I couldn't understand any of it because I only speak English, and even English from 200 or 300 years ago is so different that I could hardly understand it. So I told them that they probably knew more about it all than I did. I was up 3 weeks ago. That was the last time. I'm pretty sure that I'll go up again in a couple of years, but I'm not sure after that. The whole program, or whatever they call it, is going to change in July 2021. I think they said the 8th, but it could also have been the 18th. I wasn't hearing very well. They weren't trying to intimidate or warn me, so I don't think we have anything to worry about. I hope they don't show the videos they took of me when they first started taking me up because I was so scared and young, and they are embarrassing.
So it seems like UFO encounters have become a lot more normalized now. When I was growing up, talking about UFO sightings was reserved for people in tinfoil hats.
Yeah, especially after that whole David Grush thing a few months back.
What's interesting is that we've shifted from all alien stuff is for your town lunatic to okay, I'll accept UFOs, but that abduction guy is out of his damn mind.
It's because they've done such a good job of easing people into the UFO culture. Remember, it didn't start with congressional hearings. First, we found out about the SR-71 and the F-117 being tested out of Area 51. Suddenly everyone was like, oh, that makes sense. People were seeing weird things but their imaginations ran wild. Then pilots started reporting strange sightings too, and we had a logical answer. It's just next-gen aircraft being tested by some government. After decades of this footage accumulating, engineers are now comfortable saying, hey, that might be real footage, but there's no way that UFO is conforming to the laws of physics.
I'm not saying it's aliens, but it ain't human.
Exactly. We were primed to believe all the UFO stuff was just a new stealth bomber, then they pulled the rug out from under us after we'd already accepted it.
The interesting thing to me is how credible witnesses have made talking about UFOs as alien tech normal now, but live aliens are still taboo. I mean, who do they think is piloting those ships?
I think we're being prepped to break through that mental block too. I never used to hear about sleep paralysis. If you claimed you got abducted, you were just labeled crazy. Now it's like, okay, there's a scientific reason you might feel visited by aliens at night, but you're just letting your emotions run wild. We've moved into, this is probably real, just not what they think it is. How long until that rug gets pulled out too?
Yeah, and it's not like they'd fly here just to mess with some random Air Force pilot and dunk on an F-18. They've got to be here for something.
Maybe it's like a drive-through safari for them. Everyone stays in the vehicle end.
But there's always that one guy who gets out anyway.
So UFOs are real, but it's only the drunken frat boys of alien society who actually get out of the ship to mess with us. That would explain a lot about the probing.
If you've experienced any UFO or alien encounters, please tell us your story in the comments. We're trying to normalize talking about these phenomena.
Even if you don't think people will believe you, getting more stories out will help change public opinion over time.
That's all we have for you tonight, folks. Make sure to watch out for that one shadow next to your closet door that isn't behaving quite right, and that creaking that sounds a little like it might be something walking up your stairs.